Welcome to Cannoncast, the Cannonball Festival podcast where you can meet the artists of the festival one-on-one. Cannonball is a performing arts festival in Philadelphia and is a hub of the Philadelphia Fringe Festival. We present new and groundbreaking work from local, national, and international artists working in dance, theater, circus, and other performing arts. Today, I speak with Daniel Maseda about his show Be Good with Paulette. Well, thank you again for joining me. I know you just got back from the big festival. How was it?
It was good. The big festival being the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which ended just 2 days ago now. And to say a bit about myself, I'm a performer and a writer, I suppose. And at the moment, the kind of performing I'm doing is solo clown comedy. And so this past year, I've been developing this piece and this character. The piece is Be Good with Paulette. The character is Paulette. And I just did my first like run at a major festival, Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which was like 25 shows in 26 days, something like that. It's the most solo performing I've ever done. It's the most performing I've done in a concentrated time period like this. It was great. I'm delirious, to be honest. It's so exhausting, and it's a festival that is everybody's running on fumes, kind of from day two, maybe after the adrenaline starts to subside. But yeah, it was great, and it has me quite excited to bring the show to Philly because I have done the show in the States before, but after you do a show that involves clowning, audience participation, improvisation, after you've done it for a month every day, the show changes a lot. And so I have some like new stuff to present in Philly. And I know that Philly likes a little bit of clowning and a little bit of experimental stuff and a little bit of what the heck is this? So yeah, the run was good. I am changed by and depleted because of it, but I'm quite happy with how it went, frankly. This solo performing is not something I thought I'd be doing even 3 years ago. And so, yeah, it's something at this moment, I'm enjoying doing it a lot.
Nice. Why 3 years ago?
Just to choose a number, I suppose. But no, for most of my adult creative life, I've been pursuing performing more in like a devised theater context, and I went to school for and have been very interested in ensemble-based creative practices, stuff that's written without a writer, stuff that is hard to describe, stuff that's interdisciplinary. And also for much of my adult life, including because of COVID, the work has not been consistent in that field. Like I've spent many years doing more day job working than creative than performing, frankly. And so I say 3 years because 2 years ago I decided that I would go study at a clown school in France called École Philippe Gaulier. I went there planning to do like 2 months of just workshops, basically as a refresher, as wanting to be back in class in an intensive setting. And I ended up spending a full year there, and then this past year I went back for another 2 months. So I've been investing in recent years more in my side of my creative practice that is solo, that is not ensemble generated. It's I think like with any school experience, probably it's introduced a new framework to how I think about what I do. And yeah. So 3 years I say arbitrarily, but also it's just that this new framework for what I do has come to be in that time frame. Yeah.
Wow. Big changes.
Yeah, definitely big changes, and also just like to be developing solo work feels very different than developing work with an ensemble. And then once you start talking about producing that work, it's also a different ball game. So yeah, a lot of changes in recent years for me, and right now is a super interesting period where I feel like I'm enjoying not just the process of like sharing the work I've made, but also the process of developing it, which is the style of performing I do right now is it's character based, but it's also very responsive to the audience. And I basically developed the piece just in front of live audiences, doing variety show spots and cabarets and things like that, because it's hard to test out participatory stuff without real people. And so it's like a daunting new approach to me in one sense, because having a lot of control over the things that I do on stage. I like being someone who's well prepared, but I have quite a lot of fun dealing with the challenges of sharing stuff with people before it's ready to be shared, and letting the people I share it with guide where it goes a bunch.
Where did the character come from? Sort of knowing that's, where does any idea come from? But if you were to sort of like tease it out through its history, where does that thread sort of lead to?
So the character I do is called Paulette. He's the title character of the show, and he's the best way I can describe him is he's a very polite guy who wears all brown, and he is his goal in life is to have successful small talk so that he can go home safely, basically. So he's so polite that it's ruining his life, maybe. Um, and I started performing this character just out of wanting to try solo work on stage, and the genesis of it was kind of just a certain image of a costume, like a sweater, slacks, very slick back hair, and a black eye. And I started performing on like 5-minute cabaret slots, doing that and just seeing where it would go.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot since I first started doing it on stage. And, when you're doing something for 5 minutes versus doing something for an hour, you have to have new dimensions that aren't just an image of a costume. But the character, I think, comes from many parts of myself. Surprise. It's like a, um, it's kind of like a disastrous combination of like a whole bunch of people pleasing qualities of like caring about being well adjusted, caring about being legible and presentable and respectable. Um, I I think there's a lot of the values I grew up with. I went to private schooling. I went a nice university, and I think many years of my life have been spent investing in like certain certain modes of professionalization and just I don't know, valuing a certain kind of socialization that's very presentable and adaptable in the world we live in today.
Hmm.
And I don't always feel that's done a lot for me in life. Of course, I'm like well adjusted, so to speak, but I also feel like a lot of these, for me, the like more well mannered kind of like etiquette minded parts of myself, especially those that operate on a like less than conscious level, tend to be paired with like some of my points of biggest frustration in my development as a person. So it's like I have a good amount of social anxiety, but I'm also quite capable of dealing with it in a way that I can charm my way through a conversation and get out of there before anything too disastrous happens. And then usually that's paired with a feeling of just like sickness of some kind, or feeling like I have surface level skills in socializing. Sometimes feel like they are successfully hiding some deeper level crises. I feel like I'm speaking a little bit vaguely. I'm basically just talking about social anxiety, I think,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like
No, it's very relatable.
and the show doesn't the way that the character and the show deal with these things is not one to one related to what I'm talking about. It's like I think the character has roots in how I deal with social situations, and also just like how I'm a person who's very, I don't want to say socially conservative because I have no idea what that actually means today, but I'm someone who tends to conserve my energy a lot. I'm not super outgoing. I'm friendly, but I'm kind of like a very very tentative person, and I think this show is kind of like trying to flip those tendencies around and make something a bit explosive out of just like different kind of socialized behaviors that I or my family or the people around me have. And again, the more I describe it, the more I feel like I'm intellectualizing something that is actually like a pretty nonsensical, absurd show. Don't really want people to come to it because they think there's going to be something profound I teach them about what it is to be what it is to be conditioned a certain way or whatever. I think the what the show does, if it does anything, has more to do with bringing out a kind of ridiculousness in the ways that we interact with people who we don't know very well. And I have a lot of fun doing it.
I'm a big fan of the image that you used on one of the promotional materials where it's you sort of going like this. It just feels like very iconic and recognizable as a
Thanks.
state.
Yeah, but it's like a transfixion and it's like being petrified or something. It's like
Which is
being visible and being very horrified by it.
yeah, which is sort of like I feel like a very recognizable and like familiar state for moments of social anxiety, which is like I'm here and I'm visible and I hate that, and also I must engage with it, and like I have to see the things around me, but I also am horrified by these things. And yet
Yeah, right.
I must endure this thing, even if that thing is sort of just like a small talk.
Yeah, right. I think it's like the deep. I very much identify as someone who's like conflict avoidant, and I feel like sometimes when you're conflict avoidant, the way you get away from a conflict is from investing a lot of energy in something that is not worth your time. Just like I need to get out of this conversation, so let me pull someone else into it and talk to them really adamantly about something I don't care about, and then that'll save me from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it's like mental gymnastics, and mental gymnastics can look funny if you try to do them physically.
Right. Is it quite a physical show?
I yes and no. I do physical stuff in the show for sure, and my training has a lot of physical theater in it. It's not like a movement show explicitly, and there's a lot more talking than there is moving. But yeah.
Hmm.
I think my style of performing is quite physical, I very much adapt to the room I'm in. So like the room I was just performing in Edinburgh was great, very peculiar. It was a long room with like a big aisle that was as wide as the seating bay to the side of it, and then just like big pillars along the sides. There were parts in the show where I was climbing up on the pillar, and parts of the show where I'm like scratching these fabric walls. And yeah, so I think I have a lot of fun doing physical stuff, but there are more physical shows than this one, if that matters.
It's a good. I'm curious when you said taking mental gymnastics and making them physical. That just sort of caught my brain.
It's the first time I've said it for what it's worth, but I think there's something I think there's something to that. There's a if we're talking about social anxiety and like being presentable, I think a lot of the skill of that has to do with being able to like absorb, internalize, and not betray your poker face.
Hmm.
Uh, in moments where you're really absorbing something that is like a critical threat to you. So there's some extent to which that sentence that I did just make up is true in the show. There's like um there is audience interaction in the show. If anyone's listening to this and is turned off by that, I would really like to say that I try so hard not to make it annoying audience interaction. I find audience interaction pretty painful a lot of the time, and I think the way I do it is fun and sometimes surprising. That's all I'll say. If you don't want to come, don't come. But it's not but don't make that the reason you don't come.
What's the best reason they should not come?
Yeah, I think if you don't like the sound of my voice, I speak throughout the whole thing, so don't come for that. If you don't like to laugh, don't come. Or come and don't laugh. That's nice too. One of the things that's fun about this show is that I make a lot of space for getting derailed because I feel like that's kind of like what I was describing before. That's when you're trying to deal with social interactions, there's like an extent to maybe there's the people pleasing side of things, but being ready to say yes to kind of anything, even if it's out of your own best interest. And so I think there it doesn't always happen, but a lot of the time in the show, audience members will do something that kind of like breaks the rules I've set for myself, and they can cause me to short circuit or something. And usually the show goes physical in those moments when I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and it feels like, uh-oh, viscerally I need to do something in this moment. So maybe now's a good time to faint, or maybe now's a good time to to run out a door or to pick up a chair or something.
I feel like anytime there's a participatory moment, there's like the audience is bound to push back, and you've sort of made a game out of that pushback, or that those moments where they try to break the rules deliberately.
Yeah, I think it is super exciting when someone feels empowered enough to voice something during a show. I'm being very kind in the way I say that now. Sometimes it's not that fun, sometimes. But I do want to invite a certain kind of play to happen because I think that I don't know how much people you've talked to for these podcasts talk about clown, but right now my sense is that Philly has a strong clown scene, in large part thanks to Pig Iron and all these great performers who are connected to that company or that school or just the scene in Philly more broadly. But my sense is that in the States right now, there's kind of a moment happening or starting to happen with this word and this style or approach, which encompasses many different things. But I think my sense is that people see a me- people who are excited about clown, a lot of the time it has to do with seeing a show that does something with the audience that is not like what they're used to seeing in a theater, and it makes the situation feel alive in a
Hmm.
different way, or it makes it feel like new things are possible. It makes it feel like maybe there's less pretense, or maybe there's less stiffness to the event.
Yeah, yeah.
And I definitely that resonates with me in a big way. Like I think the some of the shows that have gotten me most excited about this style of performing do a good amount of that. And like I said, I'm not someone who really tends to like audience interaction in shows historically, just because when I've seen it, it's often felt like forced and not necessary. And just there's a lot of ways to do it wrong, but there's something special about shows that are able to do it in a way that doesn't feel super manufactured or doesn't feel like putting a big burden on the audience. Shows that are able to use that tool to make something different happen. To give audiences this, I love shows that make me feel baffled, like that make I don't know what the hell this is, but I want more of it. And also shows that give me a sense of like I don't know what's about to happen next. I feel like anything is possible, and I'm going to be surprised no matter what they do. Those are things I love, and those are things I aspire to. Yeah, the audience interaction side of things, I think, plays in the direction of the surprise element, and I guess the baffling too. Oh, yes, you were saying sometimes audiences feel empowered to push back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is trying to set up a kind of play, and sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it really does. And I'm still kind of like in the phase of my practice or career where I'm doing a lot of testing out what are good ways to facilitate that. But I take a lot of pride in having like a certain kind of sensitivity with those situations. Like I really want to invite people to invest themselves in the experience they're having. I also pride myself in like having some kind of ability to craft the moment while it's happening. Sometimes people want to participate because they are feeling strong because they just drank a bunch
Right.
or that kind of thing, and that can be quite funny if it's not too like disruptive or violent or so, um
Hmm.
but I think it's part of what I like about this show I'm doing right now, and part of why um I think people might like to see it, because it invites this kind of risky element of like what might happen if
Hmm.
we follow this unplanned thread, while also having a pretty strong sense of direction in the way that it plays with the audience, and the
Hmm.
way that it plays, the way that the character plays in general.
Are you sort of actively shaping the piece as you're going through and interacting with people, or is there any kind of like arc that you have in the back of your head, or is all of it sort of up in the air until the end?
I won't say too much, but I will say there is an arc, and there is a show that happens, so that if there's two people in the audience and neither of them wants to interact with me, there's a show that happens.
Yeah.
But the show part does get edited on the fly depending on how much other stuff happens.
Hmm.
So, like, my last show of this run in Edinburgh, maybe like 15 minutes into the show, a detour that probably took 15 minutes started and took things in a different direction. And so, like, half an hour of the show became 15 minutes at the end when I had to speed through it. So it's like it's really like uh do, doing a long run of the show ends up meaning that you have to stabilize some of the
Hmm.
more volatile elements just for sustainability. The show is still pretty young, I should say. Like the first versions I did of it were in April, so it hasn't been 6 months yet. But yeah, I used to do it really like with a list of things that could happen, and I would refer back to the list when I didn't know what would happen next. Now
Hmm.
it's a little less scrappy, but I one of my priorities is like really giving space, or really giving opportunities to special moments as they
Hmm.
come up, and not ignoring those things, like not ignoring things that happen in the room just because they're inconvenient to the show. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it is it's a fixed show, but it's malleable.
What was the process like for you, sort of moving from like those, like a 5-minute version or a 5-minute exhibit of the character? Were there times where you were sort of just like, you do a performance and then like do some writing at home, or was all the writing and all of that arc discovery like in front of people?
I guess a mix of both.
Hmm.
The most development for the show has just happened from going on stage in front of people and new things
Yeah.
happening. So there's not like a formal script for the show. There are outlines and things like that. I've definitely formalized it a bit, but yeah, I'm someone who is very moved by deadlines and by like urgency, the necessity of having something to do when I committed to a performance. So a lot of the earlier spots I would come on with a rough plan of
Hmm.
this is a game I think I could play. This is a kind of text I could joke with. This is a way I want to enter. There's yeah, just kind of like components, bits, I guess. Um, and so I would have a spot on a show in the like hour or change before the show. I make my list of like these are the things I want to get
Hmm.
to. The first several times I did it, it was fun enough that I stuck with the character and like decided I would keep developing it. But the character started to get more legs when I would go out to do a set with a plan and then improvise enough that I didn't get to 80% of my material. And I still had energy to keep going when my set was over.
Yeah.
And that's when the audience participation started to become a more important part of it.
Hmm.
Um, because yeah, I'm someone who's always been drawn to comic acting, but usually for me that's a style thing. Like I
Hmm.
like playing in shows that have like a melodramatic aspect, or I like very big styles of
Yeah.
performance, very theatrical things. And I think for me, improvisational stuff has usually been in more in the realm of like, oh, you go to an improv show at a
Hmm.
comedy theater, and that's like a certain kind of like light fare, or
Yeah.
improv in the context of like dance and contact improv and those kinds of things, where it's a little bit more of like this is like art.
Hmm.
There's a more artful practice. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just by virtue of doing it in front of people and finding that laughs would come when I took a little more time dealing with the audience in a way that I guess is it's doing crowd work. I have trouble with that phrase because I think people use it kind of negatively talking about stand-ups, but yeah, a special kind of crowd work started to become quite fun for me, and it also just felt like people started to pay attention in a certain way that was more than just me showing a number, showing an act, and
Hmm.
the thing getting laughs where I planned.
I think there's been like a fun sort of wave of like non-comedic improv in Philly. One was Nick Gillette is another improviser in town, and I think he had a similar sort of take on improv. He was like, we often, it's like that genre, that sort of thing, and he was like, how can we use like the tenets of improv and also the sort of the principles of like devised theater and sort of the pig iron approach to improv and combine them into like an improvised drama.
And also like a lot of the shows over the past decade that have excited me the most in a theater setting have been much like Pig Iron's work, or literally
Hmm.
has been Pig Iron's work that is written through improv. You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
it's like the work like Lightning Rod Specials pieces, like
yeah, yeah,
these companies that clearly have roots in devising, but also are like damn funny, like it's
yeah,
funny and have a very peculiar style, something that feels very alive and special when you see it. It's like how
yeah.
you couldn't write this. You can write it
Uh,
just by improvising.
yeah,
But
I remember. Did you see The Appointment
I
from
did,
from
yeah,
them?
I did.
Oh my God, the first time I saw that, I was like so startled at the Thanksgiving scene.
I know.
It was one of those moments where I was watching it and I was like, where did this come from? Like, this is so like amazing, but also sort of eerie because you're like, what? I feel like that's where you start to really feel like like someone has touched some like weird part of humanity and brought it to the forefront.
I should give a shout out. My brother was in that piece, Jaime Maseda. He's a Philly performer,
Oh,
and
yes,
and
yes.
he's in the appointment. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jaime is the reason I know a lot of what I know about Philly's scene, and also the reason just I'm familiar with Pig Iron's work, Lightning Rod, a lot of the people who are showing up in on the Fringe Arts on the Fringe lineup this year.
So are you from Philly originally, or are you from the area?
No, I'm from Washington D.C. and I born and raised there, and my performing life has been mostly in New York. The past several years, I've been between New York and DC, and a little bit France because of the clown school connection I was talking about. And so Philly is a relatively new city for me. The Cannonball lineup and also just the broader Philly Fringe lineup this year looks great. I'm very excited about the Dumb Hub lineup as well. I don't know if
Yes.
you're familiar,
Oh,
but
I am.
they look awesome.
I'm hoping to see Red Sweater Chalupa and Ben Franklin's Sex Party. What else are you excited to see this year?
Oh man. Oh, why didn't I make a list for this? Well, people who I know are coming. Definitely people should go see Fish.
Oh,
Fish is on the Cannonball lineup by a friend of mine named Fumi, who's from New York and who was just at Edinburgh Fringe also. He's amazing and just like I don't know. There's sometimes people have a quality when they're on stage, and Fumi has a quality. I think sometimes there's something in the eyes that happen when someone is being really, really playful and really just like open and foolish,
hmm.
and her quality, uh, her quality works for me. I think she's a pleasure to watch. Iron's the new Lightning Rod piece. I would love to see that. Um, and uh, there's a play in the Dumb Hub lineup that I would mention in particular. The Guy at That Party by Rafa Meister. And maybe you've seen the photo for this. It's a person with a taped up face and a giant tape hand. I can't wait to see this show. Two others, I know this is a Cannonball podcast, but two others that jump up on the Dumb Hub lineup are Composed by Jackie Skinner, who's another like performer who I'm newly a fan of. And then there's a show called A Young Man Dressed as a Gorilla, Dressed as an Old Man Sits in a Rocking Chair
Yeah.
for 56 minutes. And that is, I've never seen that, but that is a cult favorite at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival that happens like once every year apparently. And it's like you can't get a ticket. It's so good. And I don't know who does it. I don't know what to expect of it in Philly, but I think I need to be there for that.
I'm very excited to see Americannibal. That's
Oh,
an accidental musical about eating Joe Manchin alive. And I think that's going to be very fun. I'm very excited to see Magenta Lies as a show that my former classmate Rebecca Posner is doing. That's all about midlife crises. That she did at a scratch night as well. I think Spank Bank Time Machine I'll mention as well. That's another show that I interviewed for the podcast, and it's another solo clown show. It is about Narcan and how Narcan is in a way sort of a time machine to bring people back. And I was just I had a great time chatting with them I've had a great time chatting with everyone on the podcast, but I think that one I just really stuck in my head because of how like deeply personal and it's basically had
that guy at that party.
that guy at
The
that
guy
party. I'll see if I can
that I
catch
will
that one.
say.
Are there any last thoughts that you have for audiences that are coming out to see Be Good with Paulette?
I'll try. So I this is a show that is peculiar in style. It's something that a little bit resists being fully legible or logical, and in that sense it can be a little it's an absurd show, but I really think that there is something for almost anyone in this piece. It's bold to say, but it's really because there's a lot of improv in it. It changes every night, so you could easily see the show 2 nights in a row and it would feel completely different. And yeah, I think the things I was saying earlier about how I have high aspirations to make it a very special kind of show that regardless of who's there, something special happens in the room every night. And people who are very enthusiastic about being part of a show and people who are very like uncertain about shows that do a lot of that involve the audience a lot, there's a place in it for those people, those two kinds of people and everything in between. So I have trouble describing it because it's like it's a show that leans into really nonsensical impulses, really enjoys being a bit bizarre, but it really at the end of the day is I think it's just entertaining. I think if you're someone who has any kind of relationship with politeness or like conducting yourself a certain way or being frustrated with how people receive you, being frustrated with having to be received well by people, if you are super polite, if you're really upset by people who are super polite, it's like there's for me, this piece kind of like explodes many of those things at once. Um, and yeah, I think it's fun. And if anyone is curious about what it is and needs more of a pitch, there, I would invite them to message me. Uh, if you think it's too weird for you, it's not. You are exactly this strange yourself. Yeah, I love the idea of people taking a chance on the show and then being pleasantly surprised by how something that's a little bit experimental or a little bit less traditional than what they might expect from a theater show. People who are surprised at how I don't know how much fun can be had. So yeah, it's playful, it's silly. I think it's accidentally profound in some moments. It's an energetic hour. So yeah, how's that? I'm
Love that you invited everyone to DM you in case they wanted like more like an elevator pitch. DM me for pitch.
Yeah, I think just sometimes it's kind of like what I was saying before. I think a lot of my favorite shows have something that is hard to describe about them. And
Yeah.
um I aspire to some element of that in what I do as well. I don't know what to say except like find me, look at my Instagram, see what some of the clips are, and if it's for you, I think you'll know quickly, and if it's not for you, maybe try anyway and it might be for you.
Thank you again to Danielle for speaking with me, and thank you to you, our listeners, for listening.